I've decided to kill you all in an excruciating manner. What do you say to that?
Family Guy is a show that has a dog and a baby. Yet despite Peter Griffin being the show's Family Guy, I feel like everyone remembers this show mostly for Brian and Stewie, along with Joe, Quagmire, Cleveland, Adam West, and James Woods. Oh yes, James Woods. You freaking boner. I started to watch the show currently because after the Family Guy Christmas ranking, I was all Family Guy'd out because, spoiler alerts, this show only has 2 good Christmas specials. And because of that, I felt like I rubbed some people the wrong way about how I feel about Family Guy. I do love this show, I really do. But even I can admit that the show stopped being watchable when they stopped doing road tours. And if you don't know what a road tour is, it's pretty much a grand road trip type adventure with the show's 2 most memorable characters, Snoopy and the Rugrat, inspired by the Road 2 movies starring Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. And while watching some of the Road 2s, I started to remember why I love this show, and why I hate what it currently is. And before we start, I made some rules to be clear on what counts as a Road 2 and what doesn't count as a Road 2. All of the episodes here have to have Road 2 in the name, and I won't be counting episodes that were almost Road 2s, family road trip episodes, and stuff like the time travel episodes, because that is a whole nother ranking for a whole nother video. Knock that out of the way. Here we go. I'm never taking these off.
Hey Stewie, wake up! North Pole? North Pole! There it is!
Yeah, Road to North Pole is still not a good episode of Family Guy, and it's also not a good road to. I've already talked about this episode previously on my Family Guy Christmas special ring, so to avoid sounding like I'm repeating myself for the hell of it, I'm just gonna try to keep this brief. The episode is pretty much about Stewie wanting to kill Santa Claus, and when him and Brian get to the North Pole, they realize that all the Christmas gift demands from all the greedy people around the world is killing him and his fugly incest elves. So Stewie and Brian help Santa Claus, and after a big up, they tell everyone that they're all a bunch of greedy assholes, and with everyone in Quahog agreeing to ask for one gift for Christmas. 1 year later, everyone in the North Pole is back in good health, and everyone gets what they want, blah 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 blah, the end, I don't want to go through who this. I hate recapping shit already recapped. Part of me has warmed up to the episode a bit, but as a Road 2, it's alright. Checks the boxes for what a Road 2 is, but the songs here suck. Seth MacFarlane's dad is a forgettable host, and I still hold on to the belief that the episode should have just been 1 part instead of 2. Three out of 5, let's move on.
Christmas time is killing us!
Road to India was originally going to be the bottom of the ranking because there's not really much that happens in the plot. But after rewatching this episode a bunch of times, I decided to put it in this spot because unlike Road to the North Pole, it's all 1 part. And it possibly has the best love interest for Brian in any episode. The episode is about Brian trying to contact tech support, and he ends up talking to an Indian girl named Padma, because I guess Indians doing tech support is a racist stereotype. Anyways, Brian and Padma start talking on the phone regularly, and Brian decides to go to India to be with her. And Stewie tags along because it wouldn't be a Road 2 without him. They go to Padma's job to find her, and it's revealed that she's beautiful, and that she's going to marry some random guy, I forgot his name, which makes Brian sad. Then Padma tells her family that she doesn't want to marry some random guy, and that instead she wants to marry Brian, the American that she only met through phone. Padma's dad tells Brian that the only way he could marry his daughter is that he has to give him a large amount of money because the dad had already paid for the wedding. So later on, him and Stewie decide to go and make some money by removing tapeworms out of people's asses. And then after that, Brian has a better idea and goes on the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And because of Brian being a pretentious douche, he loses and Padma leaves him because that made her realize that she isn't in love with Brian and that she just didn't want to marry some random guy. So she thanks Brian for saving her from a life of misery and regret and leaves him, ending the episode with a big Bollywood dance number, along with Brian getting mauled by a tiger. Yeah, if the episode had a better ending, it would have been way higher. Plus, before the ending, I really liked Brian in this episode. Yeah, he was a bit cheesy, but I could give it a pass because at least this time, Brian was actually in love and didn't know that Padma was beautiful until they met IRL. It wasn't like he was only interested in Padma because of her looks, like Jillian and that blind girl. He just liked her vibe, and he probably felt a connection to her. But unfortunately, because of Modern Family Guy wanting Brian to be a miserable pretentious douche, fucks it up by being an annoying pretentious douche, which is honestly very sad. The plot with Peter going to bingo was alright. The episode overall is decent, which is bad for Rhode 2 because if it's just gonna be decent, what's the point of even calling it a Rhode 2? But if you want to see Brian and Stewie go to India and see Brian get mauled by a tiger, I would probably recommend it. But either way, I'll just tell you to just skip to the parts with Stewie in it because he's the only redeeming part of the episode. Like every episode of Modern Family Guy he's in. 8.5 out of 5. Do you want me to take this off now? Because I don't think I'm not supposed to be wearing these. Oh god, it's so fucking bright in here.
Forget this.
To The Multiverse is about Brian and Stewie traveling to different universes because Stewie entered a genetically altered pig and they stayed fair. I'm not kidding, that's what kicked off the plot. But unfortunately for them, Stewie doesn't know how to get them home. So they end up continuing traveling throughout the multiverse until they go to a dog-dominated universe. And Brian, because he's a creep, he realized that he wants to stay in the dog universe, so he decides to destroy Stewie's multiversal travel remote because Brian is a pervert. Then they visit the Dog Griffins, where they meet a dog Stewie and a human Brian to help them get back. And Dog Stewie tells human Stewie that he left the shuffle button on.
Oh my god. There you go.
Wait, what? Why would you put a shuffle button on your universe hopping device? That makes zero sense. That's like putting a self-destruct button on a TARDIS. Then Stewie ends up biting Dog Peter because Dog Peter was treating him like a dog or human because this is a dog-dominated universe. So Dog Joe ends up putting him in a human kennel. And Brian, along with Dog Stewie and Human Brian, show up to rescue him and return him to the Prime Universe. Fortunately for them, Brian and Stewie return to their universe, along with Human Brian, because he wanted to see what a human-dominated world looked like. And he decides to go out on his own to make something of himself, which unfortunately doesn't happen because while he's crossing the street, he gets hit by a car and dies off screen.
Look at him go.
Look out!
Ending the episode. Yeah, this episode's alright. There's not much story until they get to the dog universe. Most of the episodes is just Brian and Stewie going through different dimensions and seeing how different they are. And most of them are very funny. But unfortunately, not much plot happens until Brian gets them stuck in a dog universe. Yeah, sure, they tried to get home after they realized that Stewie forgot how to get back to their timeline. But it just feels feels like an excuse to have a football head baby and a liberal Snoop to go to the multiverse for some funny moments. Because I guess Family Guy writers just think their audience has a short attention span, which is kinda true, but it's not an excuse for a random episode to do random shit until they end up in a dog universe. I'm not saying it's a bad episode, but it's not one I want to watch outside of background noise from whenever I'm gaming or editing YouTube videos, because I can get the same enjoyment from watching clips of it on YouTube. I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5.
Stewie, please tell me you know how to get us home. Of course I know how to get us home.
Hi, we're checking in. Griffin? Griffin, that room was checked into hours ago. Well, this sucks. Ah, damn it, Vegas!
Road to Las Vegas is the first good road to any most experimental one that's actually good. This episode follows Brian and Stewie going on a trip to Las Vegas to see a concert. Stewie reveals to Brian that he had invented a teleportation machine because why not? He did the same thing in season 7 with the cast of Star Trek Next Generation because Seth MacFarlane is a huge Star Trek fan. Brian and Stewie try to use it, but it ends up not working, which is what Brian and Stewie think, because instead of teleporting them to Las Vegas, it creates two different versions of Brian and Stewie that went to Vegas, like they actually got to teleport there. And the rest of the episode is just following the Brians and the Stewies of their misadventures in Las Vegas, with one of them having the good luck and the other having bad luck, which ends up causing a loan shark that Bad Luck Brian and Bad Luck Stewie owned money to find the Good Luck Brian and the Good Luck Stewie, and kills the Good Luck Stewie because Brian is a douche. Then around the same time, Bad Luck Stewie convinces Brian that they should just off themselves, and like the other Brian, Bad Luck Stewie lets Bad Luck Brian die because Stewie is a baby and he's scared of death. Then the next morning, the Good Luck Brian and Bad Luck Stewie find each other in the bus station, and this causes Stewie to realize that the teleporter glitched and created two different versions of themselves, which is something that I said in the beginning. And it ends with Stewie and Brian not telling the other how the other version of them died as they go on their bus ride back to Koha.
Hey.
Whoa.
Unlike my previous Family Guy ranking, where I pretty much ranked 5 episodes as really bad, 3 as mid, and 2 as okay. But here we actually got some pretty good episodes that balance out the mid and terrible ones. The only thing that keeps this from being higher is that there's no songs in this episode, which feels like a crime because a road to without a song is like eating a sandwich without bread. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5.
Two.
Brian, look out!
You dick!
This is Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Now return to Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
I say, walk slower, dog. My huggies are already holed up in Box Canyon.
Road to Rhode Island is the first Road to, and the first Road to in this ranking to actually feel like a Road to, not counting Road to the North Pole.
Hi, I'm Ron McFarlane, Seth MacFarlane's father. Kenny Rogers was supposed to be here, but I think he's dead. Anyway, Seth came out of my penis.
The episode starts with Brian in therapy, recounting the time he was separated from his mother when he was younger, and how he felt being abandoned by her, which causes him to become depressed. Then when Lois heads to fly to Palm Springs to pick up Stewie from Carter and Babs, Brian decides to go instead, thinking that this trip is what he needs to take his mind off his mother. At first, everything goes well. Brian picks up Stewie, much to his dismay, and takes him to the airport until Rupert the teddy bear loses their tickets, leaving them no choice but to stay at a rundown motel for a night. Then the next morning, the hotel manager tells them that their card has been declined, so Stewie has to wake up Brian so they can GTFO out of there. They steal a car and later ride on the back of a truck until they stop in Dallas to visit the farm where Brian was born, so he can get some closure with his mom. When they get to the farmer, voiced by the Flying Dutchman, I'm not kidding, that's the same guy.
Have we met?
That was 300 years ago.
Daddy, look who it is.
Oh, you saved me a lot of digging, you did.
Sorry, son. Lots of dogs been born here.
Of course, it was the shirt I was buried in.
Refresh my memory. Which one were you again?
Maybe people just don't believe in ghosts anymore.
Brian, come on in.
You thought you could fool the Flying Dutchman.
The farmer tells Brian that the reason why his mom gave him up is that she wanted Brian to have a better life. The farmer asks Brian if he has a good life, and Brian comes to the realization that he has a good life. Now he appreciates that his mom for giving him up, so he can be able to have that life. Then the farmer reveals to him that his mom, Biscuit, died, and is now a stuffed animal side table.
Mom!
Which is probably pretty tame for Family Guy, but fucked up nonetheless. So Brian, with Stewie's help, gives Biscuit a proper burial. And on the train right back, Brian thanks Stewie for helping him. And at that moment, Brian and Stewie realize that they had some fun and bonded on their journey, as they sing one of the first of many iconic songs sung by Seth MacFarlane, and Seth MacFarlane doing a British accent. The next day, they get home, and Stewie decides not to tell Lois about anything that happened on the trip, because now he has respect for Brian. And the episode ends.
Okay, Meg, I'm thinking of another word.
Is it kitty?
Yeah, this is probably one of the first really good Family Guy episodes to exist, because before this, Brian and Stewie were just rivals, and even then, they didn't really have much screen time together, because this was when Brian was Peter's voice of reason, and when Stewie was trying to kill Lois in every other episode. I thought the two bonded throughout their adventure and their musical number that they performed in the end, which sat the standard for every Road to episode, excluding Road to Vegas and Road to Germany, to have a big, fantastic musical number by the duo in some way. This episode was an experiment done right, and the B-plot with Peter looking at pornographic help tapes, and the ending with Lois getting naughty with him was pretty fun to watch, but was overall kind of forgettable, because it could have just been its own episode. I liked how Brian actually has character. I honestly really liked Brian's character here more than in the last few entries, because at the very least here, he's not really much of a pervert. Outside of one scene where he's drunk, the guy, he's just not a pretentious douchebag pervert. He just seems like a very genuine guy who's going through shit, which honestly makes him more relatable. I also really liked Brian now have to come to terms with the fact that his mom is now gone, and was treated like a table for who knows how long. Honestly, I still wish that Brian was still this more down-to-earth, relatable character instead of a pretentious douche that he's always portrayed to be, because I really liked him here. And that's gonna be something that's gonna be a recurring thing with most of the Road 2s I'll be talking about later. With that being, Brian being less of a pretentious douche, and him being more of an actual person. Take notes, Road to India and Road to Las Vegas, take notes. Rating 4 about 5. This episode's been talked about enough. I already said what I had to say about it, so let's move on.
Ah, that's always good.
Going to add
The 21st century, and leave the rest of the world behind.
Excuse me, we're looking for a Mr. Goldman. Mort Goldman? Small business owner, tends to wine a lot, kind of hypochondriac. Oh no, you can put your hand back up after you put it down. You know what, never mind.
In Road to Germany, the Griffins are having an Oscars viewing party, and Mort Goldman accidentally goes into Stewie's time machine thinking it's a bathroom, and ends up in Portland. So Stewie and Brian go in after him, and they start to realize that they're in Poland on the day Nazi Germany took the Jewish to a place I can't say on this channel. Pretty much, if you watch the movie The Boy in a Striped pajamas. Yeah, that place. Stewie tries to use the return pad to return home, but unfortunately for them, they need to get some uranium to power up the return pad, which is in Berlin, which is unfortunate for them because they escaped all the way to London. So they join the British Army so they can go back to Germany and get some uranium. When they get to Berlin, they go to the Nazi headquarters dressed as Hitler and 2 other Nazis to get some uranium and return to modern day Quahog. And they succeed and end up traveling back before Mort walked into Stewie's bedroom to prevent all of this from happening.
Can I poop in here?
No!
Despite this being the first Rhode 2 not being directed by Dan Povenmire, that's right, that Dan Povenmire, this episode is a very fun watch. And yeah, sure, the ending was okay, but the rest of the episode was very enjoyable. At first, I thought it was a bit random to put Mort in a Rhode 2 adventure with Brian and Stewie. But after watching the episode a bunch of times, I grew to love this pairing, and this is probably the only time I gave a shit about Mort as a character, and now I wish low-key that they made him more of a supporting character and that they could have done a Rhode 2 episode with Chris. I know they already did a time travel episode with him, but it just seems like a big missed opportunity because of how close Stewie and Brian are in the current seasons. And as for Mort, I low-key want to see him appear in more episodes because of how likable he is here, but unfortunately, his only personality trait is that he's a Jewish stereotype, and that Peter and friends suck and are terrible people. Maybe he can hang out with Brian in some episodes because I like the way he interacts with him and Stewie here. And that I would much rather watch him try to mellow out and to get into some shenanigans with Brian. I'm gonna give this one a 4.5 out of 5.
Pardon me, sir. I'm Jackson. I'm homosexual. My wife is ghastly.
Whoa, ass ahoy.
Conscience, Brian, try explaining this to Lois. You'll wind up in a dumpster.
Don't joke about that. That's like the Holocaust to us.
In the episode Road to Rupert, the Griffins are having a yard sale. And during the yard sale, Brian accidentally sells Stewie's teddy bear slash best friend, Rupert, to a guy who was moving to Aspen. So Brian and Stewie go on a trip to Aspen so they can get Rupert back, while Peter has his license taken away because he tried to become a daredevil. Okay, back to the main plots. Anyways, while under during the Aspen, they tried to rent a helicopter at a helicopter rental place to fly over the Rocky Mountains. To rent a helicopter, Stewie does a musical number with Gene Kelly to pay for a deposit because Brian and Stewie are broke. Plus, for some reason, they take a musical number as currency. I'm not gonna question it. I've seen weirder things happen in the show. After they get the helicopter, they crash into the mountains and they end up in Aspen. Somehow. And they get to the guy's new address to get Rupert back. And the guy tells them that Timmy is now Rupert's new owner. Wait. Timmy. Anyways, they try to get Rupert back, but Mr. Turner doesn't want to get Rupert back to them because in this universe, he actually cares about his son. So Stewie challenges him to a ski-off, where if he wins, he gets Rupert back, and if Mr. Turner wins, they get Brian as their dog. Mr. Turner agrees, and they race. But unfortunately, Stewie hilariously loses. And because Brian doesn't want to live with Timmy Turner, and Stewie not being over Rupert, so they decide to get the crone to kick Timmy, take Rupert, and then Brian and Stewie carjack someone so they can get back to Quahog as the episode ends. I'm not kidding. Brian and Stewie ended the episode by having a butler assault a child, and then they proceed to carjack someone. 5 out of 5, no question. No question at all. I feel like an episode like this would probably never happen again because of Brian now being an asshole and Stewie not being as evil as he used to be. I like that here Brian made an actual mistake instead of him just being lazy. To his defense, he probably didn't know that Stewie was going to even leave Rupert on the table and that Mr. Turner was going to go move to Aspen. The guy was genuinely sorry and wanted to help out his best friend. Unlike later in the show where he gave him herpes in that weird episode episode and lost him in a stowaway episode. Their friendship is the best thing about this episode, other than the scene where the animators put Stewie in Jerry Mouse's place and that iconic Gene Kelly dance scene. Yeah, I know the scene exists to help pad out time, but I really love this scene. Seeing Stewie brilliantly animated over Jerry and the way he's assigned in this sequence makes him look like he belongs here. Hell, when I found out that they originally had Jerry from Tom and Jerry in this, I was confused as hell. Mostly because it had Jerry talking in it for some reason. And I was so used to seeing Stewie in this place after seeing this episode a ton of times. And as for the B plot with Meg driving Peter around and her eventually getting able to bond with her dad is also good. Unfortunately, this should have been its own episode because the Brian and Stewie stuff overshadows those parts of the episode. But I wouldn't have it any other way because this is a fantastic Road to. But is it perfect Road to? Sorry not sorry to all the people who think this is the best Road to. But I genuinely believe that the best Road to isn't here yet. Cue transition edited clip.
Be careful, cause the mountain...
Brian, look out! Oh, crash ahoy.
In Road to Europe, Stewie runs away from home so he can go to the BBC studios in London to live in his favorite show, not Teletubbies, because I forgot what this shit was called. And the backgrounds in this show reminds me of Teletubbies and that weird Christian show that had a Chuck E. Cheese wannabe in it. Anyways, Ryan follows Stewie to the airport to stop him from boarding the plane, but unfortunately, he's too late and now they're on a flight to London. Then after the plane lands, they realize that they were on the wrong flight and ended up in the Middle East, of all places, because why not? This episode was made in the 2000s, so Brian and Stewie go on a journey to London so Stewie can live on his favorite show, while also getting into some shenanigans. When Stewie gets to the BBC studios, he says his goodbyes to Brian as he enters the set of Not Teletubbies. And as he's wandering around the stage and sees that the host of the show is a piece of shit, he realizes that his favorite show isn't real and that it was all fake. Oh my gosh, who would have known? Brian returns to comfort him and they go back to Kohan, with the episode ending with Stewie no longer watching Not Teletubbies, and he starts to put that energy into wearing fruity hats. Yeah, this episode is honestly one of my favorite Brian and Stewie episodes in the whole show because of how Brian looks out for Stewie and is there for him when he realizes that his favorite show isn't a real place. This is one of the few episodes where the writers remembered that Stewie is a baby, and it honestly makes the episode 10 times better because despite how smart Stewie is, there's shit he doesn't really know about or understand because he's just a baby. He didn't know he was going to the wrong gate because he only a baby. He didn't know Not Teletubbies wasn't a real place because he just a baby. He didn't know Not Titus was gonna be a piece of shit. Stewie was just a fucking baby. I feel like if this episode was made today, it wouldn't be as good because in the newer seasons, modern Stewie wouldn't think the show was a real place and that Brian would just straight up tell him that it's just a show and would follow Stewie to the airport because he would most likely be too drunk, high, or watching Pornhub to even care. Hell, again in the episode Stowaway, he literally does that same thing. And that is why I hate modern Brian and that Golden Age Brian is the GOAT, with this episode being a good example of that. Also, the B-plot with Peter and Lois seeing kiss was alright, and that's all I gotta say about it, because honestly, I couldn't care less. 5 out of 5 is what I would say if this episode wasn't perfect. So for that, I'm gonna give it the rare 6 out of 5. Does this make sense? No. If I'm only doing this just so the video can make sense? Yes. Will I continue to do this occasionally? Yes. Are a bunch of you gonna hate on me for it? Probably. Will I care? No. This is called Alberto. This isn't called You. This isn't You. Use a TV show on Netflix that Jenna Ortega was on. Plus, giving out 3 5 out of 5s at the end of the video just seemed anticlimactic.
There it is. The BBC.
And that was the end of the video. Thank you all for watching, and I'm sorry for the long wait again, I'm still trying to work on that. I think I'm going to have a bit more time to do this and all that. This wasn't the 1K special I originally had planned, but it's something that I had to make, and it was very special to me because I really love these episodes, and I guess all of you do too, depending if you're a Family Guy fan or not. And to make things even better, I'm announcing right now, when I hit 2K subs, when we get to 2K subs, I hope we get there eventually, 2K subs, I'll review Sponge on the Run. That's right, the Sponge on the Run movie. And Jacob Tutu. Yeah, that's right, Jacob Tutu from Cubo. Don't you think I didn't know about Cubo? You guys clearly didn't see my shorts. Well, the one short I did, but I'm planning to do more. I honestly do enjoy Family Guy. I don't really enjoy the newer episodes, unfortunately. And to all the fans who enjoyed the newer episodes, good for you. At least you enjoy something. This has been Alberto, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Well, the bottom of these two's hearts. You can already guess what the next video is about. See ya.